Hey, what's up, Moto Buddies? Mike here from Taco Moto Co. I have a very top secret bike here. Don't tell anybody about this video. Let's keep this just between you and us. There's a little bit secret revealing here, and there's some things that are in pre-production on this machine that we will cover. And some of these things are already talked about. So KTM released the two-stroke enduro bikes. That was a release that happened this week, just a couple of days ago. And there's some great videos that talk about the new platform and the new updates. And so we're not going to reveal any secrets because those have already been let out of the bag. And you can watch those videos and I'll put links to those. But here we have a lot of those updates on a four-stroke bike. And so this represents what you'll see when you get into the new 2024 KTM 500 EXCF, the 350 EXCF, the 450 XCFW, and then the new 350 and 500 X, I forget what the heck they call it. They no longer call it the XCFW and the 350 and 500. I think it's the XW, I don't know. I'll put it's word salad. It's alphabet soup. I'll put the model numbers in the descriptions. And we're actually making a spreadsheet that is going to have a really good breakdown of all the models and all the components that are on each and every model. And so we'll just put all those links in the bottom here so that you can see what's going on. This exact bike is the 450, the 24 450 SXF, and it's a hybrid because it's got some of the enduro components on it. And so this is representative of what the electronics will be when you get your hands on one of the new 24 four-stroke enduro bikes. But again, some of this stuff is already out there now on the two strokes. And so I'm just showing you what this will look like on a four-stroke bike. And so you can imagine when you finally get a 500 EXCF, this is basically the platform and the architecture and components of what you'll get. So let's take a look at, now, as I say that, ignore some of the stuff on here that is race setup. So this is a race bike, and you're not going to have an acro on the final bike. You're not going to have a kit WP suspension stuff, front and rear, cone valve stuff. There's just the blinged out triple clamp. So ignore the fact that you're looking at a hybrid situation, a blending of all sorts of things in one bike. But let's just keep on. So up here at the front, probably the only thing really of worth noting is that you now get sealed connectors on certain things like the headlight. This is a production grade. This is what you'll get on those bikes, and so instead of having an open type connector, it's now sealed. Ignore some of this other stuff. This is just set up for race use. We've made a headlight because of the high demand. This is going to get a Baja style setup with the dual Baja Designs headlights, and so we're pulling way more current than this stock configuration will allow for. So we've built a one-off harness for this bike for running Baja electronics and lights. And so you're looking at some of our stuff and some of the stock stuff. So this is a bit of a hot mess. The final production bike will be quite different than that. And you can see that some of this is just, again, prototype and beta setup. So we'll talk more and address more of that when final production bike comes out. Let's take a look at the gas tank while we're here. We have a video that covers the all new design for the new fuel pump. I won't spend any time talking about that now. We've done a full exhaustive video on that, but you can see it here on a final bike. And then that means there's no fuel connector here on the bottom. The fuel line now runs through the battery, by the battery, down through the frame, and then goes into the injector. So that's all new. You'll see here that there is on the flywheel cover, on the stator cover, there is an access to the flywheel bolt to turn the engine here on the outside. You didn't have that on the previous generation bike. So that's new. Looking at the subframe, the rear end, obviously this is all completely new. And this is a very trick configuration that is much different than the previous generations. And so what's happening here is you have a hybrid situation where you have aluminum spar where the weight load is the strongest. And that's carried through the mounting bolt here and then up into this section here. The little holes show you where there's aluminum, obviously down here. And the rest of it is composite. Now, the composite subframe has some really great attributes for flex, for vibration damping. You can tune this. And the engineers have no doubt spent a lot of time focusing on the tuning dynamics. There's holes all over. You've got You've got air holes here. The breathability is dramatically increased. There are just all sorts of little ways that you can see they've buttressed and strengthened it, but then given it certain rigidity characteristics for damping. And that is really the key reason to use a composite subframe. Beta does it, Husqvarna did it, and continues to do it. This subframe will carry over to the Husqvarna as well. So this architecture is being released on the KTM platform now, but Husqvarna will adopt all of this. The plastics will be different. It'll be white and blue and yellow like they do, but it's the same basic components. There's cross compatibility with all this stuff. So by incorporating the strength of aluminum bracing with the flexibility and damping characteristics of the carbon composite, it's a really genius move and long overdue. I think this is absolutely the way to go. The solid aluminum subframe on the KTMs has the benefit of being bendable. That is to say, if you wipe out and you bend your subframe, you can manhandle it, lady handle it back into shape. You can stand on it, jump on it, whatever you need to do in the field to get it bent back so it's not ski-wumpus anymore. You could do that. That was one advantage. Also, it's lighter than the Husky subframe, which was full composite. Some of the disadvantages of full composite is they break. And if you have a 20 through 23 generation Husky enduro bike, you know that there's a failure point here, very common. A lot of those will break on guys. So when you have this design, that's a really big upgrade and very innovative, and I am a big fan of it. And then underneath here, you can see there's this honeycombing, and that allows for weight reduction and strengthening here, and that carries all the way down through the fender curve area. So I'm really impressed with this. I like it a lot. There's so much airflow. So you now have airflow through here, through the top, through the side panel cover on the other side. Just up here even, you're getting air under the seat everywhere. The bike is breathing much better. So that's a major improvement. Up here on the top, you'll see that there's a lot of new going on, and you have a new size battery. Unfortunately, the previous generation batteries won't fit in this new case. They've created a new mold just to be frustrating. So they're pushing now you to get a new size battery. So the aftermarket will have to come up with something for that. This little guy right here is a power distribution module. So gone are the days of fuses and relays. They're now incorporated. Those functions are incorporated into a solid state little module. And there's 5 circuits on here. You have, what is that? Ignition, lights, brake light, horn, pump, and fan. You had those same basic fuses. You had 5 fuses on the former EXC-F model bikes. Those fuses are now solid state. They are incorporated into solid state relays. So if you have a fault, the lights here will indicate your status of those circuits. So if you have a red light, something's in short fault. Green would be system normal, and then I think there's a yellow if you have unplugged something or something is offline. And that is all incorporated into a 3-wire CAN bus system. Now here's a CAN bus end of line relay. You've got ports here. Because this is not a EXC wire loom, there will be some things that are not here, and on that final loom there'll be some additional things, but you've got like some dummy plugs where some functions are not happening on this exact loom. But this is the new setup. So the advantage of this is if you're out in the field and you have, let's say you loop out, you shred your tail light, license plate, rear end, and you've got a short fault in the tail light, this will disable that circuit and it won't pop a fuse. And as soon as you realize what's happened and you pull that apart and you get those wires out of short, then this will restore itself and you have restored functionality of that circuit. So there's some really big advantages to having a PDM box like this, power distribution module box like this. And the simplicity of the wiring is a big deal. You don't have relays. So on the EXC bikes, you had 3 relays mounted up by the battery or under the seat, and you could have faults with the relays, faults with the wiring, and there have been that. I've had that, we've seen that. So it's yet to be determined how durable this will be over time, over the years, but PDMs are not new. They're not mysterious. These are on all sorts of bikes and have been on bikes for years and years and years. It's proven tech. It's just going to be new to the small chassis platform. And underneath this, there is a small whip, and it's got a connector on it. And our hope is that it will allow you to plug into a module, which will give you more PDM configurability, user configurability. So these are pre-configured and pre-wired for those functions. But what if you want to add your own custom functions like some auxiliary lighting, heated grips, power GPS, those sorts of things? You should, we don't have exact information on this, but you should be able to add a user programmable module to this. There are some bosses, some mounting bosses in here that we think are going to allow for that. And then that will give you those user configurable functions. We don't have, again, we don't have the module. We don't have access to that data and information just yet, but that's the inference based on what's here, what we see, and the cabling. So as we get more information, we will tell you about it. You can see here that there is a new ECU. This is the SX1 ECU from AthenaGet coming soon. There's not a whole lot I can say about it other than that it brings new features and functions to the AthenaGet platform, new motherboard, new onboard electronics, and new app, new functions. That's pretty much what I can say about it at this point. We will have a standalone video very soon that will cover everything about the new ECU. So look for that. Notice that the electronics are all set inside of a tray that's a unique tray that will be specific to each bike platform. So if you had a 2-stroke bike, the 4-stroke, they will have different trays that allow for different ECU mountings, different electronic packages. So that's clever. So they'll have one subframe and then different trays. One subframe across the different bikes and then different trays for those different configurations. So I'm really liking everything we're seeing. Something else you'll notice here is the reg rec is mounted there instead of on the frame. So you clear up some frame space. On the 450 dual sport bikes, they'll have some different, supposedly they'll have a different weld configuration and headpiece. So I think by relocating it, they were able to do that. This also will be exposed to cooling air as the airflow is coming in to the air filter. So that's new and interesting. Down here, they still incorporate the 196 watt electronics like they did from the previous generation bike, and they add, like they have on the 350, now the 450 will have a access bolt to the flywheel so you can turn the crank for setting your TDC for like doing valve adjustments. So that is a nice upgrade to the 450 that we didn't have before. Ignore, because this is a race bike, ignore some of the A-kit suspension stuff and the fact that this is sort of a hybrid test bike. Looking back in the swing arm, all new swing arm, new hydroforming for the aluminum, hollow. There is a new bracket here for the lower chain guide slider. You are seeing that this is really buttressed up. You had vulnerabilities with the previous gen where you could snap off some of these tabs if you took a rock in just the right or wrong place. TDM has come up with a new Chainsider. BRP has these, the Cherubies. This swing arm has been out on the motocross bike now for a year and a half since the 22.5 factory edition. So this is not a new swing arm. This design has been around, but it's new to the enduro guys because some of us don't pay attention to what's happening on the motocross bikes. So this is all just borrowed over. Because this is an Exc-F, there is a link, and on the enduro bikes it'll be PDS. So this will be reconfigured. New foot pegs. There is an all new kickstand design on the enduro bikes, and so the 20 Euro bike, the enduro 4-stroke bikes will have a new, better kickstand, which is a big improvement over the previous generation. And on the suspension, which is not on this bike, but there is a new configuration with the clickers. They're now toolless, so there are dials that you can access on the shock, top and bottom, on the forks, top and bottom. KTM has gone back to sort of the old days. It's a closed chamber fork, but it's a dual function. So you will have, on the top, you'll have rebound. Each side will have clickers for rebound. And on the bottom, each side will have clickers for compression. And all the reports so far on the new suspension are very good. Riders are really liking them. And so I'm excited to get our hands on we have 2 bikes coming for our testing and setup. We have a 24 500 EXCF and then a 24 450 XCFW. And so we've got our order in. We're just waiting for our dealer to let us know we can go in and pick those up. It is super exciting times right now with the KTM Austrian platform. So this is KTM, Husqvarna. They're all going to incorporate these changes. So the FE, so on the Husky side, you'd have the FE and FES. On the KTM side, you'll have the EXCF and the what used to be known as the XCFW, that new model, and then the 450 XCFW. All of those bikes incorporate all of these changes. So this is a super sneaky peek at what's happening and what's coming. If you have any questions about this bike, we'll try to answer them. Some of these things we just don't know quite yet, but we have a pretty good indication of the direction that these things are going. So we'll do our best, and you can throw those comments down below, and then hit us up if you have any needs for your bike at all. tacomoto.co, we're happy to help you there. And thanks for watching this. Like, subscribe, go out, get some adventure.